Hello, friends. This is Joy KahNah, and this week was my 30th birthday, and it was also my husband's 33rd birthday. And amongst all of the celebrations, I didn't have any time to sit down and film a video this week, so I thought the next best thing that I could do was to make a little audio presentation for all of you. So that's what I'm going to be doing today. So welcome to part one of the two-part How I've Changed Since My Spiritual Awakening podcast / audio presentation. And if anybody is tuning in and listening today and you don't know me already, basically, I have been here on YouTube on the MayasDream channel sharing spiritual insights and guidance for your soul for about 3 years now, and I've been doing psychic astrology and intuitive readings for 5 years, and I also spent a couple years doing some life coaching and relationship coaching. So right now, I've just turned 30, but my spiritual awakening actually happened pretty rapidly over about a 6 to 8 month time period when I was 24, 25 years old. And it really happened as a result of a combination of sort of unfortunate circumstances, including some very serious illness, but also including the fact that I sort of lost access to everything that had defined me since I was a little girl. So because of the illness and also because around age 24, I sort of joined the Peace Corps and gave up everything, I really ended up losing my health, and so I lost my attachment to my appearance, and I lost my status and my reputation that I had during high school and that I had during college, and I lost my access to my language, and that was a huge part of my identity, and all of the skills that I had worked so hard to build in my life, they were suddenly not needed and not appreciated. And all of this kind of resulted in my identity being really heavily sort of questioned or problematized, where all of a sudden all these ways that I was defining who I was were no longer there, and so I was left to really ask the question, well, who am I really? And if you guys want to know more about sort of that Peace Corps experience and my life story and what brought me to my awakening, I definitely encourage you all to watch my life story series that I produced at the end of last year. But anyway, this particular audio is going to be a two-part project, so you're listening here to part one, where I'm going to talk about how my personality has changed since my spiritual awakening, because it's really changed a lot. And in part two, I'm going to talk about how I live differently, like how my lifestyle has changed since my spiritual awakening. And I just really hope that somehow you'll all relate to this and that maybe it will actually spark some questions for all of you and some answers even about how your own spiritual journey has changed or transformed you and where you might like to go and where you might like to grow from here. So let's get started. So what you guys are looking at here are sort of two images of me, and the image that you see here on the left is from 2009, and so in that image I was about 19 or 20. I think it was around my 20th birthday. And then the image on the right is just a couple of days ago from 2019 on my 30th birthday. So before my spiritual awakening, I mean, wow, I was a very, very, very type A sort of person. I was exceptionally organized. I mean, I had a plan for every day, a 1-year plan, a 5-year plan, a 10-year plan, a 50-year plan. I really, really had a lot of plans, and I was really, really high achieving, actually. I just wanted to be the best at everything, and it was really intense. I was always out to be on the top, and I worked so hard. By the time that I was 20, actually, I'd already had like 10 or 15 different jobs, and I was in the field of science writing for my undergraduate and nonprofit management for my graduate degree. And yes, I was just very serious. I took a very serious approach to life, and I really believed in the rules and following the rules, and I really believed that there was sort of a right and wrong way to live your life. And according to my own personal definitions, I was just trying to do everything the right way. And so, yeah, so fundamentally, I would say some of the biggest changes that happened as I started to awaken and become aware of my soul essence and become aware that I wasn't really just sort of this person that had lived this lifetime, but I was like really an energetic being that had been a lot of different people most likely over time and who had a lot of different life experiences. One of the biggest differences that happened right away is I became a lot more calm. Like my entire demeanor, I just became a lot more calm, a lot more at ease. I had a lot less anxiety. And I think this came from the fact that one of the first changes that occurred with my spiritual awakening was a feeling of a loss of control. And I know a lot of people might experience that as being something that is really negative. And in a way, I did experience it that way for the first couple weeks or first couple months. But then I started to realize, wow, okay, I don't really have that much control over my life circumstances, and that's actually a really, really good thing. So since there's a higher power, I started to feel like, yeah, there's a higher power kind of operating in my life, and since there's this higher power, like actually maybe there's a higher plan for my life, you know? Maybe there's something more that's playing out, and maybe I don't need to plan everything. Maybe I don't need to have this 5-year plan. Maybe I can just get up and just let things unfold naturally. And that just resulted in me feeling so much more calm every single day. And that's one of the best changes that I've noticed. I also became a lot more content. It's interesting because one of the things that happened is I stopped sort of striving to be the best, and I stopped striving as much to change things. Of course, I still always really believe in growth and positive change. That's something about me that stayed the same. But I wasn't striving to achieve just for the sake of achievement or for the sake of being better than other people. And so once I stopped like constantly just trying to achieve all these goals, I just started to feel like really content with where I'm at right now. And it's really wonderful, you know, like it just there's good days and bad days, but like on a whole, I just feel so much more calm and so much more content with life. And it's a really beautiful thing. I guess I also feel now after my spiritual awakening, I just feel a lot more like myself. And I guess what I mean by that is I feel a lot more like my higher self, if that makes sense, or I feel a lot more like my soul. Like I feel that my identity is a lot less tightly constricted or defined, because prior to my spiritual awakening, I defined myself a lot based on what I had accomplished. I also defined myself, though, a lot based on like sort of where I was from, you know? So for example, I grew up in this really large Victorian era haunted house, and that was just a really big part of my identity. Like I grew up here, this is my town, this is the family that I belong to, and my family owned these businesses, KOA campgrounds, you know, all throughout the United States, the Western United States, and I really defined myself by those things, and that meant that I had to kind of live inside of those constraints in a way. Even though I thought that those self-definitions were helping me, in a way it was constraining me a lot, because all of my actions, my words, they had to sort of mesh with that identity that I had built for myself. But now I feel like my identity is so much more vast because really I just define myself as kind of a soul who's temporarily visiting this earthly plane for maybe reasons beyond my comprehension. Maybe like a little bit for soul growth and to share gifts, but most of it I understand to be beyond my comprehension. And so with this more vast definition of myself, I feel that it's because it's much more vast. It really encompasses more authentically who I am. And so in that way, I feel more like myself. Interestingly, since my spiritual awakening and since kind of giving myself permission to define myself in more of a vast way, if you will, I have found it easier to honor my actual wishes and desires. And as a result, one of the things that's changed is that I actually say no a lot more often. I say, and that you might not expect that, right? You might think that, oh, maybe I'm now more kind, more compassionate, and I say yes a lot more, but actually that's not the case. I think in a way I've developed more self-respect, and so in the past I used to say yes to a lot of things because my identity was really wrapped up in being somebody who achieved a lot and got a lot done, and somebody who was really helpful, somebody who was always there to help, and somebody who was always volunteering, always doing this, always doing that. And so I felt like I had to say yes all the time. If somebody asked me, hey, can you help with this? Can you do this? Can you watch my kid? Can you help me with my homework? Blah, 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 blah. Like, I would always say yes to everything. And so I ended up being so busy. Like, I was so busy before, but I was also really, really stressed, and I was also, I don't know, like maybe harming myself in a way by saying yes all the time. And so now it's a lot more integrated in my personality to say no to things that I don't want to do. And so, yeah, now I'm a little bit more of a no person than a yes person. Not in a bad way, but I just find myself saying no a lot, even to things I ask in my own mind. Like, for example, everyone my age seems to be going out and traveling here this time of year for this holiday. I got an invitation. Do I want to go? Before I would say yes, because it's like that's what people do, and I want to be defined as somebody who's doing the things that are really good to do for my age group and stuff. But now I'll just be like, no, really no. Like, actually, I'd rather just like relax or just sit here or read a book or whatever. So it's funny. So I give myself permission to say no a lot more often, and I find myself saying no to requests a lot more in the world, but not only requests that other people make of me, but also requests that I make of myself, especially anything that starts with should. Sort of these ideas of, maybe I should be doing this, and then in my mind, I'll eventually come to the conclusion, no, I shouldn't. No, not really. There's not really anything I should be doing, except kind of just honoring myself and to the best of my ability, being authentic, and, as much as I can, sharing love and joy with the world. I also have changed really significantly in that I have become a lot less judgmental of myself, of course, because I'm defining myself in a more expansive way. But the result of that is that I have become a lot less judgmental of other people. I mean, a lot less. For example, before I can remember, in a typical day, maybe I'd walk around in the world, maybe I'd be in line at a store or something like that, and I might look at the person in front of me, maybe it's a middle-aged woman, and I would look at her and her outfit, and I would think, oh, that's interesting that she chose to wear that today. Maybe if she had wore this style skirt and this style shirt, or she dyed her hair this color, she would actually look a lot better. So I was like constantly judging people based on what they were wearing and based on how they spoke. And I would always think, this person could really be better if they just did this, or they just wore this, or, these types of things. And it wasn't in a mean way, but it was just really a part of my day-to-day experience. And now I don't have that sort of characteristic anymore. Like, it kind of just disappeared. What I do have instead is it's sort of been replaced with this kind of experience of being almost stunned by regular people that I see every day in the world. It's really funny. I just look at people and I just feel sometimes just overwhelmed by how perfect that they are, actually, or how beautiful that they are, especially people that really are themselves, people who just don't care and they just kind of go out and they wear what they want, or they act the way that they want. And really, it's really weird. It's really weird, but it's really cool, because I no longer wish to change myself in unnecessary ways, and so therefore I no longer wish for other people to change either. Sometimes people might even be doing things in the world that are really annoying. Like, for example, maybe people are arguing in a public place or something like that. But even then, I still find myself somehow honoring their expression or their choice for expression and not wanting to change them. And I see beauty in people that before I really thought had just made poor choices. For example, I notice a lot of times if I pass a homeless person on the street, I notice a lot of these people are absolutely glowing from within. You should, if you get a chance, maybe look into the eyes of, it's not everybody, but like a lot of, especially like the older homeless people that I see, maybe people that are vets and things like that, veterans of war, like a lot of times, I'm assuming that's what they are. Of course, now I'm a psychic, so I'm become aware of things that people aren't telling me. So maybe I just know that they're veterans of war. But anyway, I just see so much light within them, and I realize, wow, these are some of the brightest, most vibrant people, and I'm not really looking anymore at like, what is this person wearing, or how eloquent are they in their speech or mannerism, or what have they accomplished. I'm not seeing the world through that way anymore, whereas that was primarily how I was seeing the world. That was a big part of my filter before. And because somehow seeing myself as a soul, it has made me more accepting of my own self and my own limitations. It's also meant that I take things a lot less personally than before. Or you could say, like, I don't really get triggered by things as much anymore. And this has taken a little bit of time to sink in, I would say. It took maybe a couple years for this to really sink in, but I don't know. Like, say people are very rude to me, or say somebody says something about me that's just frankly mean, you're a horrible person, or things like that. I don't really feel anything. Like, I don't actually feel anything negative towards that, except perhaps compassion for that person, because obviously people who say things like that or act in that way, they're not feeling very good at that in that moment, and so I'll feel bad for them. But I just don't, like, if somebody sneers at me or scoffs at me, or these things that we can encounter in the world, whether it's someone I know or a stranger, doesn't really matter. I just don't really take these things personally anymore. I do find some humor in them some of the time. That's a little hard to explain, I guess, but for example, last weekend I was at the library, and there were some children who were playing chess, actually, very loudly. Well, not very loudly, but loudly for the library. And there was an older man who was there. You could tell that he was getting he kept looking at the children, and he was kind of huffing and puffing. And eventually, when I was checking out my books, he went to the circulation desk, and he just started screaming and yelling at the librarian. How dare you allow these children in the library? This is supposed to be a quiet place. And yeah, before, I think that I might have looked at both the children and the man and been like, both of these people are out of line, or like, these kids are out of line for acting this way, and this man is out of line for responding this way. But now I just kind of thought, oh, okay. I don't know, like, I don't know why, but like, I just realized that none of this is really that serious. None of it is really that big of a deal. And I felt happy for the kids because, well, first of all, they're enjoying chess. God bless them, right? So I felt happy for the kids because they're having a good time. They're doing something safe, in the library, etc. And I felt compassion and understanding for that man as well, because he comes from a time where there were very strict rules for conduct and behavior, especially in libraries, and maybe he was looking for a reprieve. Who knows what was going on in his life? I assume that he's probably somebody who doesn't have a lot of love and acceptance from others in his own life, and who was just trying to get away and experience some peace and quiet. And he didn't have that experience exactly. So I don't know. I just didn't get triggered, whereas I noticed around me, well, most everybody else who witnessed both the children and the man, they seemed very affected, and they were whispering about him and things like that, which is fine too. I also felt like, how interesting that I'm a part of this scene at this time. This is an interesting life experience. But anyway, it's during moments like that where I realize, I have really changed. I have really changed. My reactions to life and circumstances, they have really changed. And actually, I've changed so much. I have changed so much, and I changed so much so quickly that I actually changed my name. A lot of you will know this when you're listening, but I changed my name pretty quickly after my spiritual awakening had kind of stabilized, because my name before was Jessica, which is a fine name, but I had actually built up this reputation with that name, and it was a reputation that had everything to do with hard work and intelligence and achievement and time management and goal orientation and all these things that I no longer believed in, or at least only maybe felt neutrally towards after my spiritual awakening. So I had to actually create a new name. So now my name is Maya, and I love it. I love it, but that's I think that actually, I do think our names kind of influence our personality. So before that, I had maybe met people who had changed their name, when they had spiritually awakened. And I never really understood that. I kind of thought, this is some weird woo-woo stuff to change your name. But then, when it happened to me, I said, oh yeah, of course, you have to, especially if you're somebody who really had made a name for yourself based on principles that don't resonate for you anymore after you awaken. I do think that changing your name to something that just feels a little bit more in alignment or resonate with you after your awakening can be really helpful. Yes. Another thing that changed for me in regards to my personality and the way I approached life was my feelings about money and materialism. So I was actually I was never someone who was very materialistic, and I'm still really not. I've always valued people more than money, and so I've never really been that into business or things like that. But the main difference is that before my spiritual awakening, I was really aware of the societal expectations around money. And so I felt a need, for example, to have expensive clothes and things like that, because I knew that there was some weight in that in society, in having dressed a certain way, or having a certain type of phone, or a certain type of computer, or having a certain type of income. And that was very much part of my experience every single day. Like, I felt like those were things that I needed to comply with in my life. And now I don't really have that experience anymore. I have some awareness of, okay, I'm this age, so based on societal standards, I should be making this much money, or I should have this type of home, this type of car. I have some awareness of it, but I feel liberated in a lot of ways to make choices about money and things that just feel more loving to me. For example, instead of working really, really hard to make a certain income just because society believes that I should be making that income, or someone says, whatever, whoever makes these decisions, now I feel like, maybe this amount of money and this amount of work maybe is a lot less than what other people my own age or station are working, for example, but this feels good to me. This feels good to me now. And so my personality, again, has become liberated in that way. And I'll talk more about that in the lifestyle section. But I would say that there's some profound change in that area. Another really big category where my personality has changed is that I've come into a much greater appreciation of nature and the natural world. And this has been profound and a pretty lovely experience for me. Prior to my spiritual awakening, I was not necessarily a huge lover of animals. I was kind of maybe speciesist in a way. Like, I guess I liked certain animals, okay, if I saw a really cute dog or cute cat or something, I liked it because it was cute, So certain animals I saw I had an appreciation for. But now, after my spiritual awakening, I am really stunned, sort of like with people. Like, I'm really stunned with all animals. And even small commonplace animals, I live in the Midwest, and things like squirrels and chipmunks, they're pretty much everywhere, and you can see them on a daily basis. And before, maybe I just walked through the world and I didn't even notice them. And now I'm so aware of sort of the magnificence of their energy and their world, and I take so much pleasure in watching them. And I feel such an emotional connection to nature, to the birds especially. I mean, really to all animals, but I guess I see these sort of smaller animals more often. I am so grateful for their presence on the planet. I don't know if that sounds strange, but they add so much beauty to the world, and I think it's lovely to be sharing the planet with these animals. And before, I never wanted to have an animal of my own. I of course, I grew up in a household that had animals, but I never wanted really my own particular pet. I always thought of them as something, I don't know, maybe carriers of germs, and I had thought of them as being, a lot of work and a lot of money and all of these things. And now my heart really longs for a pet. I think that's something that perhaps a goal I'll finally achieve this year. My husband and I, we don't know exactly what animal perhaps we might adopt because, well, I think in a lot of ways we fall in love with all of them, but yes, hopefully we'll find our perfect fit. But it's like I'm seeing the animals and the animal kingdom for the first time now. Like, I was never really seeing it before, but now I am. And in this way, this also applies to food as well. I think before my spiritual awakening, I sort of thought of food, all food as being food, right? Like, okay, so here I'm at the grocery store, so this food, like this lean cuisine or whatever, this food is food, and also this avocado is food as well, and these are all foods, and they're all from nature, and great. Like, I experienced it in that way. This is calories, these are food and energy. And now I have a much greater appreciation for things that come from nature. So I have so much more of an appreciation for whole foods. For example, not Whole Foods, the store, but like foods that are in their whole natural form. So again, I experience almost an awe sometimes, maybe not so much with certain highly manufactured GMO produce and stuff like that, but like especially if I go to a food co-op or something amazing like an apple orchard or something like that, like I have so much of an appreciation for the foods that come from nature. Like I am able to experience the energy and vitality that is coming off of the foods. Again, I don't know if that sounds strange, but I really am, like, when I hold them in my hand. I mean, it's subtle, right? But I'm no longer I would no longer say hold an orange in one hand and then in the other hand hold, a little Debbie cake and think that they're in any way equal, right? Like, I have so much more of a reverence for nature. And yes, I also, because of that, have more of an awareness for the seasons. I think I've always loved the seasons in a way, but now I like really, really, really feel the shifts, and I appreciate them more, and I don't resent them as much. I don't resent as much like, oh, winter's coming, it's getting cold, it's getting dark. I'm like, oh, winter's coming. Like, this is why I came to Earth, because I wanted to experience these shifts and changes and I wanted to live within them and experience myself in relation to the seasons and things like that. So yeah, that's a big shift in my personality. Before, I would just kind of like trudge through life. Like, I really did. Like, one thing that I was really tied to my personality before is that I wore high-heeled shoes all the time. Like, I'm pretty short. I'm about 5'1", 5'2", and before this is a whole other thing, but I always saw myself as being disproportionate because I would say my torso is maybe a little bit longer than my legs. And so I always felt like I needed to balance out my body to make it 100% perfect. So I always needed to wear high heels to lengthen my legs and things like that. And I always need to dress in a certain way, particularly dresses with high heels all the time, very professional. And right. So I would just do that all the time. I didn't care what the season was. So there could be ice covering all of the sidewalks and things like that. And I was still wearing stilettos, tights, a dress, like all this stuff. I didn't really observe the seasons. I mean, I would wear a coat or something like that. But I just thought, this is who I am. This is my life. I'm just going to trudge through, and who cares, what season it is. I don't know. That was my approach. And now I find it just really wonderful to adapt to the seasons, to adapt my diet, to adapt my clothing, to adapt the pace of my life. Like, I really enjoy now really, really slowing down in the winter, and then in the spring kind of cleansing, and in the summer, I don't know, like just the vitality, staying up later, as the days get longer and all this stuff. I really, really enjoy it. Since my spiritual awakening, I've also become a lot quieter. Now, don't get me wrong. I still enjoy talking. Of course, here I am making this podcast for all of you, and I love good conversation, but I no longer speak up just to be heard. That's something that I did a lot more before, and I think I was really trained to do that. I grew up in gifted and talented programs and leadership programs, and they always were teaching us about here's how you sell yourself and here's how you establish yourself as a leader. And so some of that was really picked up within me before my spiritual awakening, and I would make a point to always speak. Like, if I was at a meeting, I was going to say something. Even if I didn't have something particularly profound to say, I was going to make a point that I said something on every point covered at that meeting. And I would do the same in class. I wanted to make sure that my professors knew who I was. So I was not going to go to class without raising my hand and saying something. I always needed to be heard. And no, like, I don't really care. Sometimes I get in moods where I really like to chat just for the enjoyment of it, especially with certain people, interesting people. But I am a lot quieter, I would say. And yes, like, I do enjoy a lot more observing other people and a lot more listening. At holiday celebrations, for example, I don't have any problem maybe sitting for 4 or 5 hours and not saying anything. I mean, just enjoying the presence of just being in an environment of other people or things like that. Yes, I really enjoy silence. That was a big change, like right after I spiritually awakened, was experienced right away, where I became a lot more silent. Now, part of this has to do with, I think, the nature of the illnesses that I experienced, which is something I'm going to start talking about a lot more in a month or two here on this channel. But I remember, like, right after I became aware of my soul, right after I awakened, I can remember sitting for the first time in my life, being able to sit for 6-8 hours without any television, without a book, without anything to listen to, and feeling completely at peace. That was the first time in my entire life. Before that, I always needed to have the TV on, or I needed something to stimulate my mind, and then all of a sudden, I didn't need anything. And now, one of my greatest indulgences is that I like to, when I'm able to, I like to go through days of silence. And one thing that I found really cool, one of my discoveries here in the spiritual community, is a bit about numerology. And so in numerology, there's a vibration to every day. And days that add up to 7, like the 7th or the 16th or the 25th, those are considered more spiritual days where it can be good to be silent and to just reflect and be with your thoughts. And so now almost every time one of those day 7s comes around, so about 3 times a month or so, I will not speak at all. I'll just be silent for the entire day. And I love that now, whereas before, that's something that might have terrified me. It might have actually terrified me. I just feel such a richness in the silence now. I think because maybe I'm able to tune in a little bit more to some other channels of understanding, if you will. You know, I'm able to tune in a little bit more to the universe, if you will. And so I'm able to, I don't know about hear, I mean, kind of, like clairaudiently, but I'm able to take in something in the silence, whereas before it was just silence, you know, it was really just silence. And so now I enjoy quiet activities so much more. I love reading. I'm not a big, like, formal meditator where I'll sit down and with, like, a timer or something and do a 30-minute meditation. I almost never do that. I don't find that enjoyable. But I do kind of in more natural ways. Like if I feel a rich moment of stillness, you know, I might sit for a time in silence and just enjoy it. And that time could last a couple of minutes. It could be an hour. It really just depends. You know, it just depends on how enjoyable it is. But I'm just a lot more silent. I'm also really, I sort of mentioned this, but I'm a lot less focused on achievement. I was very focused on achievement before, and that a lot of that was my upbringing. From the time I was a little girl, I was in gymnastics, and my parents really encouraged me to be the best. I mean, my parents really very much encouraged me, if not expected me to get all A's. They expected me to be the best in sports, and so there was a high expectation of achievement, and that was a big part of my identity before my spiritual awakening. Right now, I don't really have that impulse anymore. I will say one thing. I want to, you know, make a respectable contribution to the world. But I don't really want to be the best anymore. I just want to be me. Like, I want to be as fully Joy KahNah as I can be in any moment, in any day. I just want to be, I don't even know if it's about being my best, because I do think it's good to experience the vicissitudes and the ups and downs of every single day. And sometimes when I'm having a day where I'm definitely not at my best, I also appreciate that. And I'm like, well, this is contrast. You know what I mean? This is why I can really appreciate when I am at my best. But I just want to be me now. When I first started being a psychic and things like that, I still had a lot of that wanting to be the best. Like, I wanted to be the best. I really did. I was like, I want my readings to be head and shoulders above everybody else's. I want them to be the best. I want them to be the best. And I wanted to be the best on YouTube. I want my twin flame videos to be the best and things like that. Now, I really don't care. In fact, I just want to creatively express myself and enjoy the process, and I just hope that other people enjoy it. But right, like I don't even know what the best would even look like. Like, I no longer have a definition of what the best even is. I don't even think that exists. Like, I feel like we're all here to express ourselves most fully and authentically within ourselves. And so one person's best is going to look totally different than another person's best, because ultimately now I understand it as being most fully ourselves. So I don't believe that any person is better than any other person anymore. Whereas before I definitely did. I definitely sort of ranked people in my awareness. And now I couldn't do that even if I tried. And I think actually a lot of that has come from studying astrology. So I've come to understand that we all are carrying different energies. And astrology is pretty complicated. It goes far beyond the sun signs, of course. But just for the matter of conversation, we just think about the sun signs. And I could think like, okay, so somebody who's fully developed in being a Gemini, right? Like their ultimate highest, quote unquote, best expression is going to be somebody very, very different than, let's say, somebody else who was put on this planet to be a Pisces and to fully develop their Pisces-ness, right? So I see how everybody's like carrying a mix of all these different energies, and everybody is like their own symphony, their own orchestra, like they're meant to fully express that which exists within them, but no person's like one expression is going to be any better than any other person's expression. That's how I feel anyway now. And I used to count achievements, especially my own. Like, I would talk about everything in numbers. Like, I was really big on leadership and all my leadership positions. I used to list them in numbers. I founded this many organizations. I've been the president of this many organizations. I've founded this many businesses, blah, 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 blah. I made this much money, raised this much money, so much numbers. Like, I was counting achievements all the time. And, right, like, now I'll only do it. I don't really do it. Like, I don't really count. I did at first, I guess, but like my first 1,000 readings, I counted for things like that. Okay, I've done this many. And then it got to the point where it'd been several thousand, and I was like, okay, who cares? You know, who cares? Like, I don't care. Like, I don't care. I know a lot of people these days count like likes and count comments. I don't really participate in that. That'll be more so like in my lifestyle section of this video, but yeah, I don't do a lot of counting anymore. Don't count the achievements. And I'm much more, because I'm not as focused on achievements, I'm a lot more compassionate with myself when I fail. Because before, I was always trying to top myself. For example, I would do long distance running. And so it was like, let's say, my typical pace for a mile was, say, 7 minutes and 20 seconds, and so after a week of that, I would say the next week I needed to be 7 minutes and 10 seconds, and I needed to run 6 miles at that pace or whatever, and if let's say it came in at 7 minutes and 12 seconds, I would just beat myself up, like, you failed, you didn't do it, and now, like, I'm not really even aware. I don't think as much like when I quote-unquote fail because I'm not really counting. But at times when I do come up shorter than previously, I feel a great sense of compassion for myself. And in general now, I don't like to push myself. I don't push myself in ways that feel unnatural. I become aware if I'm starting to stagnate or I'm getting bored, and I'll challenge myself to rise to a little bit higher level or contribute a little bit more to the world or try something new in my work or things like that. But I don't push myself, and I don't say this is what success looks like and this is what failure looks like, or punish myself for quote-unquote failure. I don't really think in that way anymore. And I work a lot less, and I have a lot less goals. My biggest goals are to be content, to contribute, love and joy into the world, and to rise to whatever occasion that life presents, while maintaining an awareness that really everything is fine and everything is unfolding perfectly. That's sort of my general goals, as opposed to before. It was like, I need to achieve this position, I need to have this weight, I need to have this level of fitness, I need to stack up this way in comparison to others. And so that's not part of my experience anymore. And, my website is choosefaithnotfear.blogspot.com, right? So sort of this mantra for me is about choosing faith, not choosing fear. And if you want to see an example of how really, truly I am not a perfectionist anymore, then definitely look at the website, because it's really not perfect, okay? But I have a lot less fear now, and I'm a lot less susceptible to fear mongering. I wouldn't say that I've achieved complete fearlessness, although I'd like to do so in my lifetime, but I would say that I have a much greater trust in life, and if something quote-unquote bad happens, I don't fall into fear as quickly anymore. I tend to now understand that quote-unquote bad things are usually not bad. Like, in fact, probably they aren't. Really, I don't think the universe gives us bad things, right? Like, it's always either something to learn from or it's maybe a form of divine protection, but we just don't see it that way at the time. Or course redirection, or all these different things. And I'm not able to be pulled into fear-based drama as easily as I was before. And so I just, like, if people are talking about fearful things, oh, there was a shooting here or there or a terrorist attack or things like that. Before I would get so scared and I would start to not feel safe anymore. Now I'm not really able to be pulled into the drama anymore. Like I guess I have more of like a fear detector. And when people start to go into that vibration of fear, I am like, oh, okay, there's a fear vibration over there, or this is fear, like, and I'm able to just stay calm and say, okay, this is a fear-based thing. I'm not saying I don't ever get afraid, and I definitely still have, like, core fear, like human fear, like fear of fire, and like fear, like safety-related fears, do you know what I mean? Or like, if a big animal was chasing after me, I'm definitely going to be afraid, and I'm definitely going to run. So I still have that kind of fear, but I don't have as much of like, all these fears of the world ending and things like that. And a big part of this is that I no longer have any fear of death. Now, I was always a believer in life after death. And since the time that I was like a little girl, a toddler, I did when I was little, I kind of felt like I was remembering past lives. And so I had a little bit of a feeling of, okay, maybe we survived death. But I was still afraid to die. I was afraid of the pain of death. I was afraid of not accomplishing enough in my lifetime. I had all these fears around death. And now, because I don't have any fear around death, as a matter of fact, it's so much the opposite of that. Well, now it's hard to pull me into that fear vibration as much as it was before. And so I experience a lot less fear. And like I said, I hope someday, I hope to become fearless. I hope to experience no fear at all. Although I do think that sort of fear, the animal chasing kind of fear, the burning up, the fear of fire, that kind of, I'd like to keep that, because I think that's part of our humanity that's actually really protective. But sort of the long-term stress-inducing irrational fears, I would like to become totally free of those. And the last thing I wanted to talk about today is the fact that I now have a much greater acceptance of my own limitations. So before, my personality was really affected by needing to be the best and wanting to be perfect. Now, of course, I never ever believed that I was perfect. That was the main problem in my life, right? I was always trying to be something more than what I was. And now, that isn't really part of my experience anymore. I have so much less guilt about who I am. Like, I don't experience guilt because I can or can't do certain things. You know what I mean? Like, I used to experience somewhat of a feeling of guilt because I was, I don't know, or shame, I would say, because I was shorter than everyone else. I should be taller. I should be average height. So let me try to compensate by wearing these high heels, for example, or things like that. Or I actually have had some health conditions in my life that have meant that I've had to get a little bit more sleep than other people. And I used to experience like guilt about that or shame about that. Because I would feel like I needed to change myself. I wasn't accepting my limitations. So I would often push myself to the point of almost collapse because maybe I needed to be able to do what other people could do. I needed to be able to go to the slumber parties or go out like with other girls. I need to be able to stay up just as late as they could and stuff. And so I would have all these coffees and I would have all these energy drinks and stuff like that to try to do it because I was fighting my limitations. At the end of the day, I'm a person who does need 9.5 to 10 hours of sleep a night. I've always been this way. When I was a baby, I slept easily through the night every night. I'm a person who thrives with more sleep, and now I accept that it's okay. I don't need to be doing certain things or staying up certain hours or things like that just because other people are. I accept my limitations. I accept that there's certain things that I don't enjoy that other people do. For example, I really don't enjoy dancing. I really never enjoyed dancing or going out dancing. And I always seem to have friends who really enjoy dancing. And yeah, like for a long time I would really beat myself up about that. And I would pretend to enjoy a lot of things that I didn't enjoy, because I wasn't accepting my sort of natural limitations of, this doesn't really feel good to me, and so I don't do that much, I just accept right now, okay, I'm a person who really does need this much sleep. I'm a person who really doesn't enjoy dancing. I really don't enjoy singing. I don't enjoy really going out late. I don't really enjoy alcohol, all these things. And for each of us, it's different things, that are kind of our own personal limitations. But the point is that now I'm able to say, right, these are my limits, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. Who I am is okay. The fact that I have these limitations is okay. It's okay not to be pulled into some dramas. It's okay not to feel fearful, even if everybody else is feeling fearful. It's okay to be quiet when everybody else is talking. And it's okay to experience a reverence for the natural world and for other human beings, even if the people around me can't really understand why I'm so stunned by everything in life. And it's okay not to have a plan, and not to have those great goals, and just to be and to experience growth through just the process of being in this world and just being the most of who I can be. And so, yeah, when everything's said and done, those are the main ways that I have changed since my spiritual awakening, or at least the main ways that I can think of at this time. So I hope that you guys have enjoyed listening to this little audio presentation about how I've changed since my spiritual awakening. And if you have enjoyed it, please do feel free to come back here to the Maya's Dream channel any Tuesday or Friday for more videos or audio presentations. So thank you all for listening in. Thank you so much for listening in. Have a wonderful day, and namaste.